Welcome, welcome very, very much to Conversation. A pleasure to welcome to the program Pamela Timmins, and she's an artist, and Timmins, and she's an artist, and she's also billed as a New York documentary filmmaker. She does film, and we're going to be talking to her, and she's also has a deep-seated sense of responsibility around the issues of ecology. And is also a friend of and a supporter of Pete Seeger.
That's right.
And his contributions. And Pamela, welcome so much to Conversation.
Thank you, Harold.
Yeah, we're trying to discuss some of these issues this week of ecology. But could you share your own background, please? Born and raised, that sort of thing. And then we'll talk about art, and we'll talk about your take on it. I know you've done things with improvisational jazz people, but share your own background, if you would, please.
Well, I was born here in New York City, and my mother was an artist.
Okay.
So she introduced me to her artist friends, and ever since I was a little girl, I've been listening to Pete Seeger and singing along with him, on the radio, and it's just a great honor to be able to document him at this time. The last 10 years, I've been videotaping him.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think maybe we'll have some tape that you're going to show in this program. You were in New York City. Were you in Manhattan?
Yeah.
And the family setting was your daddy and stuff, and was it it was artist, your mother?
My mother was an artist. She was a visual artist, a painter.
Right.
And I decided to study painting at the New School for Social Research.
Okay.
Yeah, and I grew up in the restaurant business.
In the business? Oh, the family had a restaurant or something?
Here in Manhattan.
In Manhattan, okay.
Lower Manhattan, where I live right now. My grandfather had a cafe on Fulton Street.
Wow,
where I live.
way back turn of the century or
something,
maybe.
Turn of the century.
Timmins is that European or?
Yeah, it's English.
English, your English background. Yeah, okay. That's good. I'm English background too, Scottish and that. But that's interesting. And your dad, your father, and the setting in the family, was it a warm, intellectually curious, autodidactic, encouraging, around the dinner table, good talk and so forth?
Yeah.
It was all was
with candlelight.
With candlelight, with a little class, right?
Yeah,
that kind of thing and everything like that. So it was in a sense that's a rich environment to be brought up in. I think the home setting is really important, don't you?
Oh, it is.
Maybe more so than what you can get at an institution like a school, even, if you've got the right start in terms of your attitude toward the world.
Yeah, it was very important. Although I was born in Manhattan, I grew up in Hackensack, and we always had a garden. So my mother encouraged me to garden, and I learned how to ride horses.
Okay.
And how to canoe.
Yeah, right.
And camp.
Okay. Hackensack is that kind of an environment there.
Yeah.
Gardening is it's a really interesting thing. And the English gardens are familiar to one and all, you know.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
that's
gardening
right. I love gardens.
Yeah, and you love to garden.
Oh, I do.
Even though Margaret, my friend, she loves to garden too. She takes great attention to that, and it's an art form, or it's dealing with it's dealing with natural process and all of that.
That's right. Yeah, Mother Nature. And then I also am a floral designer. I've done thousands of floral designs.
Oh, that's flower design or floral design. That's interesting. That's another art form. So you've got an artistic bent and have, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and did you picked up on the painting early?
Yes. I was really young. My mother taught me how to draw in 3-dimension when I was like 5 and 6 years old.
Okay, right.
And now I'm teaching children how to draw with 3D.
Oh yeah.
It's really important because then you start seeing with a 3-dimensional world, light and shadow. It's not so flat.
Foreshadowed perspective or not, or vanishing points?
Yes.
Those things you deal with, that gave us a certain kind of perception that a lot of people associate with Western culture or with an individual, a linear perspective on reality. I had a friend who was a mixed painting and sculptor, had a thing, an installation almost. It was like a building, it was a tenement setting in Lower East Side or something, and they had 4 windows, and they were actual windows, and they had people, it was summer, and they had coming out, like there was a woman with her arm out, and there was a man with his leg dragged, and had the painting going back of the room behind them in the window and they actually had the window and painted in perspective, and then it was sculpted. So you mix painting and sculpture.
That's unusual.
Did you? It was very good, very well done. They could do it. Have you ever tried to do anything with sculpture or not?
I've done a little sculpture, and I've done some mixed media with my paintings. Mm-hmm. But my paintings, I feel, are windows, and my landscapes especially. I wanted people to really have the opportunity to see the landscape. And as I was doing that, I noticed the landscape was becoming more and more polluted. So
Pete Seeger.
Yes, and Pete Seeger's songs and his movement, I really resonated with.
Okay, that's interesting because Pete Seeger's associated with the Weavers and all of that stuff, and Woody Guthrie and the traditional folk song, and he's a gorgeous man. And from my perspective, but he does have then what would be seen like a political take on things. He's not exactly a dyed-in-the-wool right-winger.
Yeah.
No, he's concerned. His ecological concern is for the ecology and for. In that way, it's a sort of way of also being in touch. Seems to me the sentiment or the sensitivity is also for the ecology, and you could say, maybe it's guarded language, but the least advantaged among us in the human condition as well.
Yes.
You know, which is an empathetic kind of consciousness, right?
Yeah, he has that. Well, he's an artist and a musician. Mm-hmm. When he was really young, he wanted to be an Indian.
Right.
And he still draws.
Does he? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And on this DVD that I've pulled together,
maybe I'll hold that up, okay?
Okay.
This is the cover. Yeah, I'll hold this up. You come in on when you get a chance, Josh, okay? This is the DVD sheet. You put this together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I videotaped it, edited, and produced it.
Good.
Yeah.
And this is getting around now. There, it's a beautiful picture of him in the Clearwater and the Hudson, right? That's beautiful.
Yeah. He tells the story of the Clearwater, which is a floating classroom that educates the children along the Hudson River Valley about the river and the environment. And it was his vision with his friend Vic Schwartz, who was another artist, to bring forth the reproduction of a Hudson River sloop.
They've made it great. I think they've made great strides in helping clean it up. It was really the shatter coming back and other things. I think they've really cleaned the river up due to the Clearwater and the work that he's done. Yeah.
Oh, as I've been distributing this on my own as an independent filmmaker.
You can see there's the storyline, and then also the DVD. Is that an hour long or a half hour? Or?
It's a half hour, and the cover is recycled paper, so that we can be environmentally friendly, and there's no shrink wrap involved.
Okay, right.
So,
and I might just say it's www.clearwater, CLEARWATER.org.
That's right.
So that's a site one could go to pick up on the legacy. And is that for this DVD, or is that a larger encompassing site?
This is about the organization, the not-for-profit that's educating our young people and our families about the Hudson River right now. And they're also doing a program for students to camp and learn about Native American tradition.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
It is.
The Iroquois, seven generations, and I think a lot of the ideas of democracy came from the Iroquois Confederation.
That's right.
Particularly Franklin, I think, was sensitive to that.
Yeah, he was.
Among the founding fathers.
They met up in the Catskills.
Is that right?
And they influenced our Constitution. So we have a lot to learn from the indigenous people. I've been listening to Teokasin Ghost Horse on WBAI. He's a radio producer who is a Lakota elder. For the last 10 years, he's had a program once a week. And so he's on this DVD.
Okay, that's good. Well, that is good. I don't know if you knew Vernon Bellecourt or the American Indian Movement.
That's right.
Did you know Vernon?
No.
He was rather radical. I mean, they seized Alcatraz and things like that.
I heard about that.
Yeah, that kind of thing, because they were objecting to the treatment of the Amerindian peoples of this continent. And Sacagawea, did you know Sacagawea?
Yeah, no,
you know?
I didn't know him. I've heard
Sacagawea was at Attica when they had, he American Indian. I think he was Mohawk, I'm not sure. And he was also part of that, and he was at Attica when they had that riot. Ramsey Clark got him out.
Thank goodness.
And everything. But he's still very, very active, politically active, and challenging the dominant culture and the bad treatment.
Yes.
They had a thing, he and his brother, Ganaradia, they wanted to set up the League of Indigenous Sovereign Nations of the Western Hemisphere, because it goes all through the Western Hemisphere of the indigenous people. I lived a year and a half in Bolivia studying the Aymara people.
Good for you.
As a dissertation topic. It was very interesting because that was a major source of, a major center of civilization. Time of Christ, they had an art that in Paracas that rivaled the old world, and they had developed a unique food complex there, one of 4 major events in the history of humanity around the potato and uca and up in the highlands. And so, I mean, I had an association for that. And in general, they've been treated very badly ever since Pizarro and Cortez. And I think we violated every single treaty we ever had with them, because the dominant culture will do that to a subservient one, and that dominance is gained by weapons, or no, by technology being advanced over the technology of other indigenous societies around the world. That issue is being taken up at the UN now, the indigenous, the idea of the importance of the indigenous communities that have been colonized.
Yeah, that's
a large issue, no?
Yeah.
Something you're sensitive to.
Yeah, well, at the UN, the indigenous voices have been wanting to be represented. And so far, it's the United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia that they have not allowed them to have their voices heard.
Well, that would, right, okay.
Yeah.
It's hard. James Joyce, a great poet, said history is a nightmare, one could add, of injustice that we're attempting to awaken from. I think the artists have always resonated with the least advantaged. Our wisdom schools always had that, but the political leaders have just been most interested in getting a political control. And it still seems to be, the whole system is set up by what is called realpolitik, not any idealized version, but just whoever's got the power can enslave and rule over others. And it is always held from Rome to Middle East to feudal times in Europe with the hereditary kingdoms and so to now where it's the bankers and so forth rule.
Well, I personally feel that we will have peace when we respect all races, all nations. And when I was a little girl, I really thought very highly of the United Nations. And actually did a little fundraiser for UNICEF.
You sure? Good.
My mother and I brought that together. And Tiokasin spoke at the, for the UN at Geneva, Switzerland, when he was a teenager. So he's been quite a spokesperson. Ghost horse. And I've been wanting to introduce him to a Dakota Sundance chief that I met in the Hudson River Valley, who's teaching traditional native culture and ceremony. And he's introduced me to the Unity Riders, who are the original horsemen. They're Dakota Nation. It's a no-treaty nation. They're sovereign. And they're known around Minneapolis, St. Paul region.
Yes, right.
But they want to come east for the first time, and he's looking to have me pull together a tour.
And
I hope I can do that.
I mean, a tour, how many are in the troupe of that? Do you know?
There's 7 horsemen.
7 with horses?
Yeah, they'd be bringing.
You got to bring all the horses.
All the horses
Barnum
would be.
It's like the Ringling Brothers Circus, right? You bring a couple of elephants while you're at it.
Well, when I was a kid, I always fantasized about being Annie Oakley. So
yes, I
we
can
pull that off. And there's going to be drummers, dancers, horsemen, and they're here for goodwill and to speak about the genocide that happened.
Wow, I think that would be wonderful, because it really is. It is a. I don't know. They talk about the Jewish Holocaust, which was horrendous.
Really?
Horrible. But there have been other Holocaust.
Yeah.
What happened to the American Indian peoples, the Carib, were practically wiped out by Columbus. Terrible administrator, terrible injustice, smallpox. Nations come together and then they meet and then they carry diseases and that sort of thing. But it was an utter, and they get conquered. That's what it was.
Yeah. Well, what they just pointed out today on First Voices was that at one time, the indigenous people were 100% of this country, which they called Turtle Island, and today they represent 1% of the population.
Yeah.
So that is really
the Europeans
something to consider. That we need to respect who they are. And we were all tribal at one time.
Oh, yeah. I think that's probably
and
fair
understood
to say.
our relationship with Mother Earth. And now it's time to return and understand what that relationship is.
That's very interesting to me. Yeah, that's very interesting. That take on things. That's really interesting that they have that take. It's a relationship that's interesting to mankind. We're all African, in the sense we know now what's happening. We're coming to know things more and more, aren't we? In fact, it's going almost every day, Pamela. I've commented to others. There comes another revolution over the transom from virtually every field in terms of understanding or coming to know the reality of how things came to be. And we have been blessed with a self-reflective consciousness through evolution. That is the Homo sapiens species.
That's right.
200,000 years ago, we came out of Homo habilis.
Yeah,
and in Africa,
amazing to
we're all.
realize.
I had my genome done. Have you had?
No.
Not my DNA done. You've not
really?
had that?
No.
It's interesting because they can do that now. Fellow Spencer Wells at National Geographic, they're getting the cost down. But they can take, with men it's Y chromosome, with women it's mitochondria. But they can trace to an individual that's got a marker, and it's scientific. It's not a conjecture or remembered legend or something like that. Right. They traced my ancestry back to an individual, and it was 60,000 years ago, an individual to me. And it's done with a scientific reading of that, and it was 60,000 years ago in Ethiopia. There was a relative of mine that can be traced. You could do it the same. Yeah. So we're able to get it. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And then there are other markers that show. And in fact, you're British. I was British back. They went to yours would probably be similar if you did it mitochondria, but they did it to where it was in the Balkans. There was Iraq. There was in the Balkans. There was in south of England, south of France, and then there was one you might belong to the haploid 235 group, is what I think that's the pronoun. And that was a group that went from there up to England and Scotland.
Right.
And that they can trace that for everybody in the world, and they're getting the price down. I think they will be getting the price down to zero soon because there's exponential decreasing in the cost of information processing coming out of the computers and so forth. But they would have a real model that's got scientific backing on the migrating patterns of the history of the world.
Right.
So we're getting down to where we understand things in a way that we couldn't have done in the past.
That's right, yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that long ago people thought the world was flat.
Yeah, they did.
Right? And now we know it's a sphere.
Yeah.
And that the circle is a very significant shape. And when we gather, we should really gather in a circle. And I'm learning quite a bit from the Native Americans about ceremony.
Okay.
I was invited to a healing of the earth ceremony.
Okay.
And they use sweat lodge.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. They have a deep understanding of how to pray and how to relate to the cosmic order that we've really lost. I think living so close to the land, they still have that consciousness.
I think so, and we were for most of our existence as a species. Comes out about 10,000 generations. If you figure about 20 years. And a good deal of that time from what depends on who you read, and it's hard to know, particularly way back in the myths of history, hunting and gathering and so. But it was probably a good part of that was evading cats that could run much faster than us and were bigger and ate us like rabbits with regularity, if you understand. Then they finally got to be where there was civilization with agriculture, and then that's come up to now. And then, and that was an evolutionary process. But then, and people had to come up with some sort of understanding of what's it all about. I think unlike a crocodile, a crocodile projects, you know. But we're all, they were embedded in nature. We were living, we were ensconced in nature in those times. And then the technology is what's, I think, which is sort of an extension of all the technology, the agriculture, and then city dwelling, civilization, and all of that is technological extension of that consciousness through tools and technology that makes a difference, right? So we maybe lost touch with the nature, but gardening is a good way to get back in touch with the earth, is it not?
It is. I'm really fortunate to have had that opportunity to garden, and I still do. And the community gardens are very helpful. One of the things I'm planning to do is a series about what's happening along the Hudson River Valley.
A written
what's
series
sustainable.
Or a video series?
No, video.
Oh, you do video. I'm sorry, I've been talking too much. Go ahead.
And part of it is to document the organic farms and the community-supported agriculture, and then how that goes to the markets. We have our green markets here in New York City to document that, and how that goes to our kitchen tables. And how actually cooking is very creative.
Absolutely, it's an art form.
So to cover all of those bases and to keep it local. Which is sustainable.
Keep it local. Things you don't like the big long Walmart supply chains and things that relate the world, you know. That's only very recent that it's been in
very recent.
You know, the supply chains go all the way back to Peking, and I mean, you know, they got containerization and computers and all this stuff. It's moving so quick.
Oh, it is. But it will be turning back to a local economy because that's sustainable.
Okay, sustastainable issues are really important, aren't they?
It is.
Not the global warming issue is there. A lot of people think it's intruding on the scientific process because it's getting politicized and everything.
Right.
But you're a painter, and you brought in some tape too.
Yeah,
and you brought in a tape, and I think Josh and George are in the booth, and maybe we had 3 tapes that we thought we could play, right? And maybe what you could do is set it up, which would show what's on the tape, and we can talk over to let them know when to stop. But maybe you could introduce the tape here.
Sure. Well, the first one is the DVD that is first part of Clearwater Nation, which is the series. And it opens up at the Great Hudson River Revival.
Okay. And we're going to run 4 or 5 minutes or something like that of that?
Okay,
so Josh, and George, maybe you could set that up. We're talking with Pamela Timmins. She's made this program, or she's going to take a segment. Is it the beginning of the program then?
Yeah.
The beginning of it.
It's
from Clearwater Nation, a creation of hers. Here we go. And our mics are open, so you can let them know when to let them.
Okay.
At Croton Point State Park, Native people pitched their teepees along the banks of the river. It is said that their ancestors came over the rim of the sky into a land where no human voice had ever been heard. Now the natives, the first Americans, can be recognized as the first environmentalists. What better way to celebrate Clearwater's grassroots festival of art, music, and activism than with the knowledge of traditional native wisdom?
Mother Earth and Father Sun, hear the voices of your children, thankful voices of your children for the gifts you made appear. Hey, hey.
Solar energy powers the festival. The panels are installed by an expert while teaching students about clean, green, renewable energy.
Job on Cape Cod, and at midnight a teenager took me out and showed me what an extraordinary thing it was to go sailing. It's not how fast you go, it's the fact that you move at all. And the wind may be coming from the north, but if you slant your sails right, you can go northwest, and then northeast, and then northwest, and then northeast, and you use the very power of the north wind against you, and you move right into it. When I got back to the Hudson, I begged my family to let me splurge, and we bought a little plastic bathtub of sailboat, and I started trying to learn to sail on the Hudson. And then I looked down in the water underneath me and found lumps of this floating by me along with the toilet paper. And the phrase that John Kenneth Galbraith used, private affluence, public squalor, came to me. I had enough money to buy this boat, but there I was sailing through toilet waste. Then a friend of mine, I don't know if he's here today, Vic Schwartz, an artist in the little town of Cold Spring, said, Pete, you know they used to have a boat, sloops on the Hudson with a boom 70 feet long. I said, don't give me any. Only an America's Cup racer was that big. He says, no, they had a lot of them. They were called Hudson River sloops. They're broad and flat, and they carried cargo right from the Dutch days on into about the 20th century, and then the steamboats took the business, and the railroads took the business. And in exactly 100 years ago, almost called Sloops of the Hudson, saying these were the most beautiful boats we ever knew, and they will never be seen again.
Oh hey! Oh hey!
much dough. Let's go the ancient ways.
Film, well done. Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
You did it on Final Cut and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's
Yeah,
well
I
done.
edited it. Yeah, I shot it.
Good
and
for
now
you,
Pete's been encouraging me to pull together a film crew and go back to the Great Hudson River Revival and shoot a feature film.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be.
And we were talking there about, we had some musicians and we had some of that, but you've also done, you've been interested in improvisational jazz, right? That's something that's of interest to you.
Yeah.
And maybe we could talk a little about
years.
that, because I know you're an artist and a painter and so forth, and video maker, but you're also interested in improvisational jazz particularly, right?
Yeah. I find it very much like painting.
Okay.
And a lot of the jazz musicians, like Miles Davis, was a visual artist as well. And it's just to catch the spontaneity and the rhythm and go with that.
Of the improvisational part. You like the improvisation of
Yes.
it. You're not totally, but sort of again the score.
Yeah.
I think that's a good. That's conversational. That we're doing conversation. It's different than an interview. You don't have a structure.
That's
you have
right.
a thing. It just happens.
It just happens.
There's some wisdom there, I think, don't you?
Yeah, the wisdom can be revealed. It's creative. It's spontaneous. And that brings forth something original.
So you've worked with jazz musicians, or particularly, as I saw in your bio, improvisational jazz musicians.
Right.
Have you done work film with them? Or,
yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. It's important to you, I think.
Oh, it is.
And it informs your art.
Yeah.
And you think the muse translates from one art form to another?
Oh, definitely.
It does. Yeah. That's an important issue, isn't it?
It is. It is. Well, the jazz is probably the American art form as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I don't know if there is, but
bank robbery at the highest levels of our political system is an art form, but but
the dark side of an art form.
Right. No,
but
jazz is the American.
Coming from the South, the blues, and bringing it out of the blues, we have the jazz, the gospel. Yeah.
Ma Rainey.
Yeah, that's right.
And Bessie Smith. And a lot of it was coming out of a lot of that was coming out of the black community.
That's right.
I think we would really be bereft. Can you imagine America without all the contributions of the black community?
Oh, it would be very dull.
We would still be doing the minuet and so forth, if there wasn't that soul and stuff.
That's
Don't you
right.
think so?
Oh, definitely.
It's such a rich thing.
It is. It gives us the rhythm of life.
Yeah.
And the patterns. And so the rhythm translates into patterns. And the light and the shade.
And that can relate into the art, right? And brushstroke, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So what have you produced anything that way, or how do you work with them? Do you play yourself?
No, I've actually been documenting, like David Amram, who was performing here at the Clearwater.
Yeah.
He's an amazing composer.
Okay.
He's really from a classical background, and then he bridged jazz with his relationship with Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker,
just to mention
Mingus.
Yeah.
And now he is bridging the classical jazz to the folk music with Pete Seeger.
Oh, wonderful.
And playing the blues.
Oh, that's really good. Now,
world music with Teokas and Ghost Horse.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's very good. Now, in your way, you're trying to document this in a audio video, or a multimedia way?
Yeah.
Have you got a piece that you put together around this idea of jazz and
I've done the Walker's Duets. It's an hour-long film. About the jazz scene here in New York City, in Tribeca. I worked with Peter Leitch.
Okay, in putting that together.
Yeah.
How long did it take? When did you do it?
I did it in 2007 and 2008.
Okay.
I was documenting a community jazz scene in Tribeca.
Okay. And is that in a CD or a
it's a DVD.
DVD, of course. Yeah. So you did it in video?
Yeah.
Interview footage?
Yeah.
All that?
Mostly playing. A little bit of an introduction. And,
letting the music
yeah.
speak for itself without a lot
and
of
then
comment.
Peter Leitch and I have done some experimental films that got into film festivals.
Okay.
And that's a lot of improv and putting, vignettes together with music. So that was shown at the Big Apple Film Festival in Tribeca, and also the New Filmmakers New York brought forth two of them, Tango Noir with City and Balance.
Yeah.
It's all jazz.
Do you count yourself a documentary filmmaker now more than a painter? Was it painting? Did you come out of painting to that?
Yeah.
What's the evolution in tempo or time?
Well,
of your priorities?
With my painting, I always loved movement. And so when I was very young, I looked at Van Gogh. Yeah. And I did a report of Van Gogh's work when I was 10 years old, and Rembrandt. So I come out of a classical painting background. And
you studied art history?
Yeah. Yeah, I studied art history at the New School for Social Research. Being in New York City to go to the museums.
Yeah, I know, isn't it amazing? So much
the galleries.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah,
And then because of the movement, I loved film. So I started to work with Super 8. And I found it really difficult to edit.
Yeah, it was, yes.
So like 10
years ago. You didn't have a steam back and stuff like they used to use a steam back to edit. And you have to physically cut the film
and tape it together.
There's a big difference between the digital is much easier now.
It is.
Yeah, you like Final Cut, is it?
Yeah. Some working.
The film was expensive.
Yeah.
Took time. You had to go get it processed and everything.
Exactly.
George Stoney, the founder of our place here, was a great filmmaker in the 30s. Wonderful filmmaker. Great work. And he's largely responsible for this place. He taught film at NYU. He's in his 90s now.
Oh,
wonderful
fabulous.
guy. Wonderful guy.
Yeah. Well, it's really significant as an art form.
Yes, indeed.
What's amazing with video is that it can stream on the internet.
So
this is streaming worldwide.
Okay.
On New Apple Productions.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's right. I think we got the site up at the end. You got it there. Yeah, that's really good.
And so the availability to have it streaming worldwide is just amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
And then you're doing that with your programs.
We got about 1,000 of these hour-long programs with people up, and that you can do that, and it can be done with that YouTube and everything, and everything can be done at you don't have to have a great big old budget.
No.
And so you can that's one of the things here. We can produce programs and you don't have to be concerned with money, which is a little hard for people to think about that, because also it runs against a lot of people's idea that whatever they do, they have to get money for.
That's right.
Well, artists usually are engaged I've got artist friends of mine, and when they're painting, you can't pull them away from the canvas when it's coming. They're at work, and it has nothing to do with, a contract or anything to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? A different consciousness, isn't it? They're really autodidact. They're engaged.
That's right.
In a way, rather than I don't think the corporate structure is very inducive to those kind of commitments.
No, not at all.
It's routinized.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that way. We need to change to let more of the good. We would call those the goods of civilization are the most important things. Yeah. And they're the ones that are given the shortest shrift by the market.
Right.
Does it seem that way to you?
Oh, totally.
Does it seem that way to artists and so forth in general?
Totally. Yeah. As a fine arts painter, I was showing my work in New York, and it's very difficult to really get representation unless you go commercial and corporate, and I refuse to do that. The same with my filmmaking. I never was interested in Hollywood. I'm really not interested in the stars. I mean, it's great that it all happens, but I think there's way too much significance on that.
Celebrity.
And the cost of everything is more than I want to deal with. But as an independent filmmaker right now, this is, this is time of
These is glory time. You can do everything. You can do practically nothing. And now everybody's got a camcorder. It's everywhere. It used to be a 100-pound deck you used to go out to get an interview. Now it's down to a little thing you stick in your pocket. It's wonderful in that way for the autodidact. I think it's for the people who are self-interdirected. That fellow George Stoney, who taught filmmaking for so long, he said he was getting dismayed because the young students coming in, all they were asking him was, what do I have to do to get an A? They're outer directed.
Right.
And so I got to get into Harvard Business to make some money.
Yeah.
And it's all about money. And they have comparisons between university education and money.
Right.
And it's all money, money, money.
Right.
And that's probably a mark of the fact that they don't have a proper system for liberating the human spirit in terms of the overall parameters of how the economy is set up.
Well, what I find when it becomes money, it becomes really competitive.
Yeah,
and when
all
it
the ugly
becomes
stuff comes.
Competitive, then the magic of
goes.
Really making a creative and original piece is not there.
Yeah, yeah, it's there among the camaraderie of the artists who are doing something for the love of it.
Yeah.
It sounds idealistic, but I don't think there's anything wrong with being idealistic. It just is the practical side always seems to want to rule and say you must do, toe the line, that kind of thing. The educational system teaches outer directed and all that.
Yeah.
One of the problems in life and the universe, perhaps, is we don't have enough time. If there, somebody once said to me, once you get past Gabriel's gate, you know, you make the big passing, there will be no deadlines, right? But we have a deadline because we only have so much time. And I know you brought in another clip. You brought two that if we can get in, we wanted to.
Well, actually, since we are kind of running out of time, I'd like to go on to the third clip.
The third clip, then, if you can pick it out, George. Yeah, it's marked 3 on there?
Yeah, it's marked 3, and this is my interest in solar energy.
Okay.
And as a series, I'd like to bring that forth.
Okay.
What's happening from New York City up to Albany with solar power.
Okay.
It's the renewable energy is really key.
It is a huge issue, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
So let's see if we can set up that third mini DV tape, and it would be marked number 3. And so when they bring that up, we'll be able to talk to that. And it's a big issue that is before us. I can remember when we had the oil crisis, 73 and so forth. It was a big, I don't know if you're too young to remember that probably, but it was, you had 25 cents a gallon, and you know, and all of a sudden it went up, and so it got to be $100. So everybody wanted a car that would get 1,000 miles to a gallon. Oh, here we go now with this. So maybe we can talk over this too.
Yeah, this is Lower Manhattan, and just outside WBAI, there are 4 solar experts.
Our guests are
Annie Wilson, Sierra Club.
Thomas Gagey from Green Power Solutions.
John Messerschmidt, Dukes Construction.
And David Buckner from Solar Energy Systems.
Now, if this net metering for industrial and commercial comes online, are there enough solar cells to go around?
That's probably the next problem.
It is an issue right now, and unfortunately we're feeling the effect of it without reaping the rewards, because you see a lot of programs in Germany, again in Spain. New Jersey's got a great program. California, I think it's still like 80% of the U.S. market, so they're sucking up modules. So we deal with that high price, that's resulting from that. But our incentive programs aren't as conducive as those places. So we are building smaller systems. Our price per watt are a little higher, and just one issue on the net metering thing. If we do get it passed on a statewide level, we need to make sure that our incentive program can keep up with it. Right now, I think that our incentives are probably spoken for through 2008, and I understand that NYSERDA continues to fund the pot of money, but technically there is no money left. So if we go from 10 kilowatt residential only systems and whatever commercial systems would never net meter to a full-blown net metered commercial program, we better make sure that we have that incentive money available or structured in a way that it doesn't run out quickly.
Or we might have to change it altogether to some degree down the road, where we'll go to what Jersey's trying to do, where you'll go to a solar renewable energy credits program. And that's where you're paid per megawatt hour of green credits you generate, basically by producing it from electricity, from solar PV or from wind. You hold on to the production yourself, to feed your building, but because it's a green electricity produced, there's a green tag or a solar renewable energy credit created out of that, and that is then sold on the open market to utilities that need to buy this because of renewable energy portfolio standards. So that's the way they're going to fund their program going forward. And there is talk about it, it's still in the works, about putting some sort of floor, price in there, so that there'll be a guaranteed minimum, price per megawatt hour that's produced that way.
That sounds a little like carbon trading, Annie.
It's related to that. Yes, it's all part of that.
It's a little like that, but it's more it's a performance-based incentive. So as opposed to you still need good quality control, I think, in these programs. But instead of spending a lot of time and effort doing that, they're saying, listen, if you can generate solar electricity, you're going to be paid per kilowatt hour as you generate it. You're going to be paid on a higher level. Up until
that's similar to what you were saying about Germany.
Very similar.
Yes.
And actually
it worked there.
It worked there. I think I was all for the solar renewable energy credit market in New Jersey, and I believe California is doing a hybrid of it as well. But I'm already hearing that California is complaining about the complexity of it, and I know New Jersey is having similar issues with you're introducing a level of trading and sophistication which we really don't need to introduce. It could be a straight, what they call feed-in tariff, where you connect to the grid and you feed the grid and you get a certain price per kilowatt hour for 15 or 20 years as a contract from the utility. And they can prove that that's going to be a lot less costly over 15 or 20 years developing the industry than giving upfront rebates today. So I think if I had my wish list, if New York City could lead New York State into a feed-in tariff model, it would be a wonderful thing for all of us.
Now, what's the difference between the rebates you're talking about and out-and-out subsidies that, like coal, oil, and nuclear power industries? They get direct subsidies from the government. So we're talking rebates. So what's the difference?
Well, the rebate is funded by a charge that's on every electricity bill throughout the state, and that's what's basically funding NYSERDA to allow this rebate program to be in place. LIPA does something similar. Comes to the subsidy side of things, that's I don't know how that is justified. I mean, in many senses.
Well, because the oil companies don't make enough money, so we have to give them subsidies.
Right, of
Well,
course.
it's being subsidized by the government. PV is being subsidized by the by us, by the people through their phone bill or their electricity bills.
Which is the system benefit charge in New York State.
Right,
that's right.
Which funds NYSERDA.
Right. It's not a government agency.
Now, I got the impression at the January 9th event that NYSERDA wasn't there's like a bittersweet relationship between solar installers and NYSERDA. You like them, you don't like them, and what's up with that?
I'm okay with NYSERDA. I mean, they're offering us funding. They seem to be lowering their funding levels lately, but it's making it affordable for people to buy PV.
And again, I think they're dealing with a limited pot of money. So, and they have I think they have 90 active installers in the state now, probably 10 that are specifically solar installers. So they have to weed people out at this point to make sure that the quality of installations that are going in are up to par. And I think, the submittal process and dealing with them, it's just another sort of thorn in someone's side, but I think they do a great job overall.
Yeah, I think it's
a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, but no organization is perfect.
Yeah, and it is necessary to a large degree, because we don't want to see what happened back in the 70s when we had a false start in this industry.
Okay, that's really interesting. Brings up a lot of interesting things about the possibility of alternate systems of energy over the fossil fuels, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You're in favor of the alternate systems being developed.
I am. And number one, they're sustainable. Mm-hmm. And I say that we're all one under the infinite sun, and the sun is an infinite energy, where our oil and gas, coal is finite. And the Great Hudson River Revival happens to be solar energized.
Okay, I'll hold this up again. You can look at that. I can remember back 73 when the oil crisis, I was talking when we went into the other clip, and everybody wanted to go. It was very popular then to talk about solar and photovoltaic, passive, all this, Amory Lovins and all that and everything, and electric cars. They were talking about electric cars and all of that. It seems to be, at that time, that was 73, 74, it was all in the air about alternate energy and everything, but we seem to just slide back into a fossil-based system, and there were economic arguments that favored, that had that happen. What has changed that makes it, and they were saying it's just not economically feasible to compete with the low cost of fossil fuels, which are very...
Well, as you heard, our fossil fuels are subsidized. And what happened, President Carter was moving forward solar.
Yeah.
And then when President Reagan came in...
He took those solar panels off the White House roof,
He took our solar panels off and brought us into...
But what about the arguments that came up there to a lot of people who were saying it's just not economic?
Yeah.
You would have to cover the world and, that. Well, and also, like, for automobiles, you got the Volt now, right? You got some hybrids, but you couldn't go straight to it because there were all kinds of technological developments, new battery systems, new technology. Have things changed between that period and now that maybe we could, as you say, go solar? Or do the arguments that held then that it just couldn't be done in any markedly feasible patterns of systems understanding the world economy?
Well, this is, these are really good questions you're asking, and part of this Clearwater Nation series is going to be focused on solar. Since all of this happened, we have gotten net metering, which really does help.
Now, what does that mean?
Net metering is when someone who invests in the PV, which is the photovoltaic, the energy that it is capturing, they use that energy. Anything left over, the net meter will run backwards, and that goes back to the power company and then is resold to other people, so that people who invest
they get a rebate
in solar,
then?
Yeah.
Okay, and is that being installed in massive terms onto the electric grid and so forth?
Yeah.
Do we have it in our electricity system in New York?
We have it now, from what I understand. Yeah.
And can one read that on their bill or something, or how does it? They can. I guess with the algorithms, they can do almost anything these days. But is that the case?
They actually have a meter set up on the location. Then I don't do it myself. My building does have solar panels for hot water, but I don't read the bill because I'm in an apartment building. But Pete Seeger has a solar-powered truck.
Okay, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's encouraging.
And last year I went to Toyota and I said, when are you coming out with your solar-powered car? And they said, it's going to take some time, lady. I said, well, Pete Seeger already has his truck. And they're like, what?
Is it strictly?
Yeah.
It has no internal combustion at all?
He and his friend Richard Gottlieb, who has a solar company in Vermont and teaches in New York State, he set up a solar panel that charges a battery in Pete's truck, and he can drive, I asked him, he can drive 40 miles before recharging.
On the battery?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good battery efficiency.
Yeah.
I think was lacking back when there were all kinds of designs coming up for. But at a design level, it's important. This is at a design level.
Right.
And then it also is if ever we got a system that was really able to tap into the entrepreneurial ingenuity of the human problem-solving capability, and we had an economic system that didn't get in the way.
That's right.
And just undergird old established systems that have power, political and otherwise. If we got in a system where it would be, the design problem would be not just like making a painting, like in the sense of an art.
Right.
You could design the whole political, economic, the whole system, and that's what you need. It's a design problem.
Yeah, well, Germany's done this.
Okay, they have. Some places have gotten in advance, right?
Yeah, and this year they have, from what I understand, they shut down their nuclear power plant.
I understand, yeah, they did that, yeah.
And this has all occurred in the last few years. So it is possible.
Okay, well, that is possible, but it's a daunting challenge, and then you got all the power of the established. It's always hard when you have an old order that has to be, in a certain sense, subsumed for the new to find its way because it's seen as a threat, and very often it is. Joseph Schumpeter talked about creative entrepreneurialism, where you can create a system that subsumes an old one that people were benefiting by. So that's a political problem.
It is.
And you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's coming. So you take heart in that we might be able to come up with that at a systems level.
Yeah, well, it's happening. Solar is more affordable than ever before.
Good, yeah.
And the technology keeps getting better.
Okay.
And these people who install it are knowing more.
Uh-huh.
And there's ways of bringing, there's actually solar paint now.
Really?
Yeah, that they can paint on buildings. They're experimenting with that.
Get it white.
Solar drapery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we may be making some progress up Mount Sisyphus, right? But Pamela, thank you so very much for that. It's really interesting to talk. And it is a design level. And again, I think it's worth underscoring that question of design isn't just for new things or even for art or design in the sense of a painting, but it is a design question that could go to understanding the political, economic system as well.
Oh, yeah.
That might be able to bring about a kind of real renaissance or birth of capability that's been bottled up by outdated institution.
That's right.
Okay.
Right here at Times Square, number 4 Times Square is Solar Skin.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Your pleasure, the perception. Pamela Timmins, then artist and documentary filmmaker, and thanks a lot for all the good work, and thanks for coming in.
You,
You're thinking about maybe getting involved over here at MNA?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Boy, that would be our game.
Yeah.
If you could throw your hat in the ring and help us get there, because it's beautiful work you've done. Sorry we didn't get to show the other clip, but on another occasion.
That's all right. Yeah, I'd love to produce some programs for MNN.
Okay, good. We'll give you the papers you can fill out and do. Join the team, right? That's great.
Okay.
Thank you for viewing. We'll be coming back tomorrow. Once again, Pamela, thank you really very much indeed.
Thank you, Harold. I really appreciate it.
Well, that was interesting. It just scratched the surface